Well, I have, as you all know, I've filed motions to, or I've filed bills to repeal a number of agencies already, including the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. But that's a great suggestion. I'll look for that. Yeah, that's a great suggestion.
Okay. What about the ransom payment to Iran?
Yeah, I mean, you all have seen this. I don't want to tell you probably what you've been watching on Fox News, but it was a ransom payment. I mean, everything that the president said to try and excuse the conduct of putting $400,000, $400 million cash on a cargo plane on the same day that our hostages were released, and then following that up with, and originally said, well, we paid cash because we don't have a banking relationship, but then subsequently bank wired 13 separate payments of just under $100 million each to add up to the 1.7 billion. So I mean, it's a horrible breach of what the American government has always done, which is not negotiate for hostages in that way in terms of paying ransom payments. And again, this goes to the fact that Hillary Clinton on that issue and on the Iranian nuclear deal and many of the other things that happened while she was there or after she was there, in this case clearly she was not part of the administration, but she's continued to defend the administration's actions, of course, I think in exchange for the fact that, you know, you see President Obama out there on Newark tax dollars campaigning, you know, on her behalf. So, you know, you always look for good news, and the good news is that, you know, he'll be gone in whatever it is, 85 days. But the bigger question is, you know, who's going to come in next, and we all need to do everything that we can to give us the best opportunity possible to preserve the values and freedoms that we all care so deeply about.
Representative Ratcliffe, can we count on your leadership to co-sponsor Representative Chavez's bill, Fairness for High-Skilled Immigrants Act of 2015, Bill H.R. 213?
Well, I think it's probably a question from those gentlemen in the back of the room that came to visit with me.
Can I elaborate on that just for a very quick few seconds?
Well, all I was going to say was this: it's Chairman Jason Chaffetz is the chairman of the House Oversight and Government Reform Committee. A very good guy, a good friend of mine, and I think you all have contacted my staff about the bill, and I know that there are lots of bills that get filed, and we give them all due diligence in researching them and the consequences of those bills. They haven't made a recommendation to me yet. That's all I can tell you. I know that you've talked with them, and I hope they've been responsive. I've been updated on the fact that that it was something that y'all, you know, cared about, but I haven't had an opportunity to be briefed by my legislative staff, and I will be when I'm. And the other thing about I think the question was about co-sponsoring it. It's kind of a technical issue, but you can't co-sponsor something when you're not in session, and so we're not in session, and we'll be back until the election.
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to add, because you know, when you have a person-to-person conversation, it's different than going through emails and stuff.
Sure.
So I just wanted to explain to you that this is literally a question of our lives. Because the immigration system, the way it works today, if you're from India or China, for example, you have a wait time of anything between 30 to 70 years, and I'm not exaggerating, right? So I'm 45 now. I would be 75 years old before I get to apply for my green card. Oh. But if someone from an Eastern European country comes in, they get their green card in 1 year. That's not a system that can work.
Right.
It's like if you had a federal quota of driver's licenses, Texas would have to wait for 1 year to get a driver's license, while someone from Alaska would get it in 3 months. It doesn't work, right? So I just wanted to impress upon you how critical it is for our lives. And it's not just about us, right? If you've been following the news about a year now, you've been seeing incidents where Americans are laid off from jobs that they've been in engineering jobs for about like 10, 15 years. And then you have people being brought in on visas, right? An immigrant doesn't wake up one day saying, okay, today I will take a citizen's job. We just want to work hard, do the right thing, play by the rules, and live the American dream, right? But unfortunately what happens is corporations, they have these captive labor pools because you have people waiting so long, right? And they essentially know they're not going anywhere. So they can afford to play with the lives of American citizens and immigrants because the broken system allows them to do so. So I'm counting on your sense of liberty and justice to help us all.
Well, very well said. I appreciate your passion for it, and as you have described it, it certainly sounds like a good bill. The great thing that I can tell you, or where you should take great comfort, is I don't think anybody has a better legislative team on Capitol Hill than I do. But we move deliberately because sometimes things are not what they appear, and sometimes there are collateral issues or consequences of a bill, and so we'll move in due course, and I promise you that we will, and I also promise you that I'll, as I always do, follow up and explain why I'm going to take a position. So it very well may be that I will, but I'm not making any promises until I have a chance to sit down with a team of folks that are frankly smarter than I am, and that can educate me.
Okay, the next question, is there anything going on in Washington that may affect our TRICARE? Doing away with it or setting a high deductible?
There's, frankly, I'm going to be very candid here. We say, is there anything going on? Right now, we're 30 days out from an election. There's no legislative business. When we get back, we're in what's called the lame duck. There are a total of 16 legislative days in the lame duck from after the election until the end of the year. What's that? Yeah, so 16 legislative days, which means scant things will get done in this Congress. So Congress is a 2-year term. This is the 114th Congress. And the way it works is if a bill is not passed into law during a Congress, it all starts over. So come January, whatever isn't done carries over. So any bills need to be refiled into the 115th Congress. So all of that is a way for me to say, there are a few things that will get across the finish line in that 16-day period. I don't control the legislative calendar, but I'm going to be real candid. I don't think any changes with respect to TRICARE, I don't think are going to occur in the lame duck.
Given that you are a co-sponsor on HR 4466, your stand on the Marvin Nichols Reservoir seems apparent, but will you please go on record and explain for us your position on building a lake on East Texas land to provide water to Dallas?
Okay, I don't know which question that is. There's a lot of bills with a lot of names. I co-sponsored HR 44, what was
66.
it? 66. I don't know by the number what bill that is, but I can tell you it's not a Marvin Nichols bill. It may be a bill related to another. The only other thing that I know right now that when it comes to water issues that are federal water issues is the Lower Bodark Reservoir.
The North Texas Reservoir Approval Act.
Okay, so that doesn't relate to Marvin Nichols.
It authorizes the Water Board to ignore the Clean Water Act that it doesn't apply to them, they do not have to pull permits, which paves the road for Marvin Nichols.
Yeah, so Marvin Nichols, as you know, is a state issue here. Okay, so
a state issue that the U.S.
Yeah.
Army Corps of Engineers is going to build, and it's going to be taken with eminent domain.
Yeah, but issues aren't always, so on the Lower Bodark, just so as you sort of characterized, I'll give you a little different perspective. So the Lower Bodark Reservoir is a lake that would be constructed in Fannin County, essentially in the Bonham area. Well over 80% of the people in Bonham want that reservoir constructed. Not necessarily because they're going to be the beneficiary of the water, but from an economic development standpoint. And so this gets to representing your constituency well. Now, I'm not saying that every single person in Fannin County wants this, but the vast majority, and we have these conversations. So in that case, there has been a process going by whereby not the Army Corps of Engineers, but the EPA has a permitting process for what's called a 404 permit. The EPA, being the agency that it is, sometimes says this is what you need to get a permit, and then they move the goalposts when you get to that point. And that's what's happened with respect to that. So our constituents, my constituents in that area said, we did exactly what the EPA wanted us to, and now they're changing the game. They say we need more studies and different studies so that we met all of the requirements. And so the bill that you talked about literally puts a deadline and says to the EPA, no, you've got to make a decision on this 404 permit by, I think it's the end of 2017. So that was the circumstance there, which sounds very different from the Marvin Nichols. Listen, I get out here in East Texas, I'm frankly glad that it's a state issue. You know, because I know it's generated a lot of consternation with respect to how that, or whether or not that will take place. But don't conflate the two issues. In other words, I think that the circumstances that I've described, I don't think relate to what is at issue with respect to Marvin Nichols. But I'll say this, without someone that's going to have a vote on the Marvin Nichols deal, is, again, I've told you probably 3 times tonight that it's not always about what my opinions are. It's about representing the constituency well. And so I listen to people around here, but I also, the district that I represent, some folks have, so Sam Johnson in Collin County, his district's all in one county. I think Pete Sessions has 1 or 1.5 counties. I've got 18 counties. It's the largest, one of the largest districts in North Texas, meaning it's a rural district. I've got 23,000 farms in this district. So it's important that I understand, appreciate, and represent the rural aspect of my district with respect to things that Dallas might want or that might be good for Dallas, and to fight for those. So whether or not I have an opportunity to weigh in on Marvin Nichols, I don't know that I would. I don't know the scenario where I would. But I will tell you that, you know, if you look at the parochial interests in East Texas that have been assaulted by the federal government or by interests in Dallas, I think I've worked really hard in these first 2 years to defend what's important to the folks out here.
Like you just explained to the gentleman back here, bills have consequences, and I'm afraid of 4466's consequences, paving a road for the Marvin Nichols and the theft of East Texas property, so Dallas can have a lot.
Okay, we're going to move on as fast as we can.